What is up, YouTube? Wow, what a blockbuster that shook down last night. We've got Matthew Stafford heading to the LA Rams in exchange for a pair of future first-round draft picks, quarterback Jared Goff, and a third-round pick. Lots to break down here. At the end of the day, I love this trade for both parties. You guys know I can be very critical of moves that teams make. I want to, really assess, is this the right move, the right direction for each team to get to a Super Bowl ultimately? And my answer for both of these teams is this was probably best case scenario for both teams. Let's do it from both sides here and explain why I like this so much for both sides. Starting with the LA Rams, acquiring Matthew Stafford here really elevates them from definitely Super Bowl contender. Don't get me wrong, but this elevates them really to me into a next level in that their margin for error is going to be so much wider now going from Jared Goff at quarterback to Matthew Stafford. I think this goes back to the Super Bowl when they had Jared Goff and the defense held Tom Brady to like 13 points, and Jared Goff was not enough to elevate against a really good defense and get the job done. Then they go on for another 3 years, and they kind of get this organizational feel over the years of this sense of, man, we really have to be perfect if we're going to win a Super Bowl, don't we? And that's what happens when you have a Jared Goff at quarterback. Stafford gives you some more of that margin for error, especially, on the field. Like, he is going to open up the offense in ways that Jared Goff just couldn't. He's a much better athlete. He's going to manipulate the pocket. He's going to extend plays. Is the biggest thing that he's going to bring to the table is when Sean McVay doesn't dial up that perfect play action shot that gets Robert Woods screaming or Cooper Kupp screaming open for those chunk plays that Goff can absolutely hit in structure. But when those things do get bottled up, like we did see back in the Super Bowl, like we have seen at points throughout the season, as it's just going to happen, Stafford's going to be able to improvise. He's going to be able to create plays out of that structure. The other thing that Stafford brings here for the Rams that I think is so exciting is just this organizational sense of hope in a lot of ways that I think they kind of needed this offseason. I would say heading into last year, they probably had some decent confidence in Jared Goff and their team. But the more and more and more you go on with a Jared Goff and you get pretty close, in a lot of these years, they're getting to the playoffs, they're winning playoff games. They beat the Seattle Seahawks, their division champions, in the playoffs with an injured quarterback situation. Really, despite what the quarterback could do in that game. You get this organizational sense of, okay, coming off this season, you've got Aaron Donald, 30 years old. You're going to lose some pieces. You lose your defensive coordinator. You need something that's going to, get you up at your first alarm. It's going to, get you to put in that extra rep at the gym. That's going to help your team kind of have that cohesive, really goal as a unit that says we can win a Super Bowl here. I really do think that speaks volumes. And I think this trade is more than just the on-field impact, because Stafford is going to bring in this day one sense of energy to the organization, this sense of hope that I think was maybe starting to diminish there the more and more Jared Goff played there. And man, Stafford just himself compared to Jared Goff, the energy he brings. I think Sean McVay has this outward desire to win a Super Bowl that is infectious throughout the organization, whereas Jared Goff, both his character and just kind of the lack of energy that he shows, I think that probably was starting to spread throughout the organization. And it was just like, we want a quarterback that's going to come in here and lay it all on the line and have that desire to be great here. And I think Matthew Stafford is the exact guy there. A guy that's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder, basically being ignored for 10 years around the league, having to play for the Detroit Lions. He himself just has that infectious energy. So I think absolutely this makes the Rams a legitimate high-end Super Bowl contender next year. Really takes them from good playoff team that needed some extra breaks to go their way for them to win a Super Bowl to now, they can go get it. It is in their hands at this point. Whereas I think with Jared Goff, you were relying on maybe a bad game from someone in an NFC Championship game or some lucky fumbles or something just to win that Super Bowl. Now with Matthew Stafford, I think they can elevate to a point where they are going to have an exceptional offense, and they can absolutely get back to having a great defense. Now, they did give up 2 future first-round picks, and some people are debating on if that's the right move for the organization. An organization that doesn't exactly have a ton of cap space and that has not picked in the first round since they took Jared Goff, which is just incredible. For one, I do think the Rams are an organization that, barring some immense amount of misfortune with injuries, they are the kind of team that is going to stay afloat. Like, even if they have a down year in 2022, 2023, they will be picking, 16th. Like, I don't think that they are going to plummet in the way that, like, the Falcons did, for example, last year. Or, the Niners is the extreme case, but literally every starter on their team was on IR this year. They were not the 49ers, they were the 49 IRs. So I'm not so much worried about this flopping and the Rams missing out on a top 5 pick because, and even the Niners, in their case, they're still picking, 12th? Like, it's not the end of the world when you're wanting to win a Super Bowl here. So the risk, absolutely worth the reward here. Not just at that quarterback position, but I think the infectious energy that a player like Matthew Stafford and a player the caliber of Matthew Stafford is going to bring in. Now let's talk about this from the Lions' perspective. Very fascinating. It was very clear, I thought, just kind of the way this organization was going, and it was even more clear before this trade happened. Dan Campbell himself said, we are playing the long game here. This is not a immediate rebuild here. We have a culture to build. I thought back in December, it's exactly what I said about Detroit, is they need to kind of reset. They're kind of like an offensive lineman getting bull rushed. They need to have that jump set and reestablish some foundation here, because this organization was starting to spiral here. And I absolutely think that it was the right decision to kind of, let's move on from Stafford. By the time we're going to be ready to be great, Stafford's going to be 36 years old. We don't know if we're going to be able to get there by then. Like, let's just reset here. Let's recuperate some picks. But the thing is, they have talent on this roster. This is not, say, like the Browns pre-Baker, Ward, Myles Garrett. This is not the Miami Dolphins about 2 years ago where, like, they were looking at, number 1 picks most likely because their roster was so bad. In Detroit's case, they could very well be that team, but they have talent on the roster, right? You've got one of the best centers in the league in Frank Ragnow. You have one of the better left tackles in the league in Taylor Decker. You got a young running back that you just invested in. You have a really nice budding young tight end in TJ Hawkinson. Kenny Golladay, they're going to have to figure that thing out. I think they probably let him go, maybe a tag and trade. And then defensively, you've got Okudah, who you're hoping to develop. You have Tracy Walker, an underrated free safety. You have Deshaun Hand up front. You do still have Trey Flowers there. So, like, there are some pieces on this team that are not going to want to play for a team with Chase Daniel as your quarterback, or, I don't know, Jacoby Brissett, Alex Smith, that type of thing. Like, these guys, you're going to lose the organization even further if you take pieces from the old regime and say, oh, sorry guys, we're going to suck this year. We're going to win 2 games. Just deal with it. We'll get there, I promise. You're going to lose an organization. You're going to lose a culture if you do that. You saw that with, say, the Dolphins. Like, they really tried to win as a team, but as an organization, they prepared for a long game. That's exactly what the Lions are doing here. It's the right thing for them to do. You add 2 future first-round draft picks to use as ammunition to go get a quarterback of the future. But you also get a valuable asset in Jared Goff for your team. I think Jared Goff, for most teams, you don't want anything to do with him. But in the Lions case, where you just lost Matthew Stafford, to bring in a quarterback that, it sounds dumb, but has played in a Super Bowl, has had success in this league, a former number 1 overall pick, you bring in a quarterback that at least is going to give you a certain floor that isn't, Chase Daniel. These veterans that want to win are going to be able to come in and justify the hard work that they put in. It's going to help you build a culture. And even in Jared Goff's perspective, there is some talent there. There's been a lack of development throughout Jared Goff's career. Maybe this does spark something for him and say, hey, you know what? I kind of had it pretty easy for the Rams. I had a coach that basically schemed everything up for me. You know what? I can come in here and really, make a career for myself. He's still very young. He's going to be cheap for the Lions because he's, basically, guarantee free, and he has no leverage to add anything on here or like get an extension. So maybe you do get Jared Goff to come in with a chip on his shoulder and play his best football. There is that possibility as well. But from the Lions' perspective, I think it's very consistent with the hiring of Dan Campbell, establishing a culture while also admitting that, hey, we need to build, we need to play the long game here. We need future picks. They're going to have, 2 first-round picks in next year's draft and the year after that. If some quarterback emerges next year and they want to move up and get one, or maybe they do pick in the top 3 and are going to be sitting there, they're going to be in a position to do that. I don't think this means they take a Trey Lance to sit behind Jared Goff, but it also makes it much more feasible to do that because Trey Lance, in my opinion, not ready to start, but you could potentially play him behind Jared Goff now for a couple years. So all in all, I think, everyone wants to know who won the trade. Both teams won the trade here. I think this was an ideal situation for the Lions. I think this is even better organizationally than getting, say, Denver's first this year and their first next year. I actually think this is better for them because I really do think in Detroit's unique situation, establishing a culture and getting a bunch of these veterans that don't just want to leave and go somewhere else because they're sick of it here in Detroit, play for a team that's going to compete. I mean, I wouldn't predict it to happen, but Detroit could be a sneaky good team next year. There's no true reason why they couldn't be like last year's Dolphins, a team that doesn't exactly have the roster talent to be a 10-win team, to get into the playoff picture, but a team that surprised a lot of people, wins some close game, and has some real character as their team. I think Dan Campbell's a coach that can absolutely bring that energy there. So for both sides here, I really like this move. And I would just say A+ trade all around. I will end with an apology to AAC. I did say, I think I was right in saying that Matthew Stafford is worth a lot more than people realize, which is evident on Twitter the second this trade happened. But I was also wrong. I said that the Rams had a less than 0% chance of getting Matthew Stafford because I thought there was no way out of the Jared Goff contract. And I was wrong about that. So AAC, I apologize to you. I apologize to Rams fans. Great job by McVay and Les Snead to get the job to put out enough there to incite this trade and make the deal happen. So good on both organizations. A rare situation here on this channel where I leave with a warm feeling in my heart. I genuinely want teams to make the best decisions for their organizations. I think both of these teams really nailed it with this trade, and both fans should be pretty happy, in my opinion, with the results of this trade. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Did the Rams give up too much? Are the Lions going to pick number 1 in the draft next year with Jared Goff? It's definitely fascinating to see these two teams play out next year. Two teams heading in kind of different directions at this point in time. But yeah, man, I appreciate you guys for watching. Please hit that like button, and cheers. We'll see you later.